let's look at 9/11. Before 2000, 1993. So those towers were built with asbestos. Have you heard of asbestos? I think everybody's heard of asbestos, right? Asbestos, if it's, you know what? If this building had asbestos in it, you know what would have to happen? You'd have to get out. You wouldn't be able to be. They can't build buildings with asbestos, right? Well, by the 90s, it became clear that the asbestos in the trade towers, the Twin Towers, was killing people because they were getting cancers. Of course, all the businesses and the moneyed interest in those buildings did their best to hide it, as they do. But eventually, some suits had come through, and it became clear that the precedent had been set. These buildings had asbestos. The asbestos was getting into the lungs of people. They were developing cancers directly related to the asbestos in the buildings. That was a known fact. Now, the Port Authority of New York, which is Jew-controlled, Manhattan is controlled by the Jews. I'm sorry, all the big real estate, pretty much. Oh, yeah, that's anti-Semitic. Oh, it's true, though. Wait, are you allowed to say true anti-Semitic? Oh, for fuck's sake. So, the Port Authority, who owned the Twin Towers, wanted to get out from it. They wanted to sell it. But nobody would buy it. So they tried to release their lawful ownership of it, and they had gone through a 10-year period of lawsuits, or a case, a legal case, to get out from having the liability of these buildings, right? They tried to farm it off. They couldn't do it. And they lost the final case, like, where they're liable now. So now, the cost to remove the asbestos from the Twin Towers was in the billions. Literally. So these buildings were actually already half empty come 2000, 2001. They were already, Bear Stearns, I think, or I forget, and one of those, they had already moved out because a case had come through, and like, it was the precedent. Like all the companies that are leasing in that building are now going to be sued from anyone who gets any cancer, which is going to happen because there's a lot of long-term employees in there. So the buildings, again, everything I'm saying here, I can back up. I will destroy anybody who wants to debate me on this. I'll make them look stupid. These buildings were worthless. The cost of removing the asbestos was worth far more than the actual buildings themselves. The Port Authority had lost its long-standing attempt to get out from under the buildings, and we now reach 2001, July, and lo and behold, 2 Jewish billionaires buy these buildings. Most don't know. I don't know any of this. Frank Lowy, Lucky Larry Silverstein. 2 Jewish billionaires. So these are Jewish billionaires. Usually businessmen are kind of savvy about things. Usually, if you're looking at a business deal where the Port Authority is trying to get rid of buildings that are full of asbestos because the liability that they would incur from trying to remove that stuff is in the billions, and they haven't been able to get rid of it. They've tried a lawsuit. They've tried a suit to get out. They can't do it. And now that these buildings are truly nothing but billions of debt and liability, 2 Jewish billionaires, Frank Lowy and Larry Silverstein, connected directly to Mossad. What is the motto of Mossad? By way of deception, thou shalt do war. These 2 Jewish billionaires connected directly to the power structure within Israel and Mossad take control of the buildings. Guess what that means? Mossad had full access to the buildings for 2 months previous to 9/11, 2001, because they just bought the buildings. Now, in that time that they bought the buildings, they doubled the insurance on the buildings. They increased the insurance. So they increased their policy on these worthless buildings. Okay, that's interesting. So these 2 Jewish billionaires just transferred billions of liability into their hands and increased the insurance. On the day, this is fairly well known, but again, people who don't know and don't care about truth and happy fucking go along with whatever they're doing in their lives, there's put options that were predicting the fall of American Airlines stock that we know are connected to the CIA. And we saw on that day, everybody was betting on the stock going down. Kind of worked out well there, because when the buildings got hit by planes, the stock of the airline companies went down, and so they made a killing. Larry Silverstein and Frank Lowy, the two Jewish billionaires who had control of these buildings, which meant the whole control of the security of the buildings was in the Jewish billionaires' hands. Mossad, we have actual video proof evidence that shows Mossad operatives in the buildings with blasting caps. So they were actually planting some explosives in the buildings, but that's not how they brought the buildings down. This is all fact. On 9/11, we saw two aluminum cans run into these steel frame buildings with girders that wouldn't even budge from that aluminum can known as a plane. And there's so many other things to throw us into smoke and mirrors, but the bottom line is if we just accept planes, there's a lot of stuff to show that it's holograms, but that just makes it harder. Let's just accept that they're fucking planes, all right? So these planes, these aluminum cans, hit buildings that are steel framed, and we see the buildings on fire. All right, first building gets hit, then the second one. Now, I'm up too in Hawaii. We were all watching this, were we not? We were all watching this, like the moon landing that didn't happen. In fact, when I was being born, they were watching it. I swear to God, my mom was in labor 17 hours. They were watching the fake moon landing while I was being born in the fucking delivery room. So anyway, on 9/11, these buildings get hit, and then we saw the buildings come down. We saw the buildings come down. Now, first off, I know Richard Gage, the head of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. I also was friends with a dear, lovely man, the chief fire investigator, Rudy Dent, who lost 444 of his brothers. I know both of these men. I have a beautiful relationship with Richard Gage, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. They all came out and said there was no way that an aluminum can with jet fuel is going to burn the support beams and bring those buildings down. That is not engineering possible at all, period. Rudy Dent, the chief fire investigator who reported on famously, he paid as well. He died from all the smoke that they inhaled. That's toxic asbestos and all sorts of shit they inhaled. On 9/11, when that happened, when I was watching it, I realized, like, fuck me, man. I have to get out of Dodge. And I told my mom within a day or two, I said, Mom, I can't stay here. I knew I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I knew it was some sort of false flag. And I was right. And within a year, I was on CNN live. There's footage. You can watch my CNN interview. I said live on CNN because it was live. On the Hard Talk interview that I did in 2003, I didn't say it because that's recorded like this. But on a live interview, now I can say it. I said that the United States government was either directly involved or complicit with 9/11. I don't know of anybody who said that. Nobody. If you can find anybody who said it on international news media before me, I'll be shocked. Is it debatable whether two Jewish billionaires bought these worthless asbestos-laden buildings that transferred billions in debt to them or liability to them? That's not debatable. That is not debatable. That's not a very good business decision, but boy, they did get real lucky, didn't they? And guess who they blamed it on? Who'd they blame 9/11? 19 dudes with fucking box cutters who hijacked planes that brought down two buildings, brought down three buildings with two planes. They say debris from one of the towers hit a corner of the building 7, and that's what brought it down into its own footprint. This is a fucking joke. Nobody with any kind of critical thinking would buy this, and it's proof positive. I've said this is the litmus test. Not only that it's an inside job, you idiots, but that it was an inside job based on the very, very well-declared principle of by way of deception thou shalt do war, Mossad. Who makes money from war? I said it earlier. The bankers. Who are the bankers? Jews. Who is Mossad? Jews. Who's fucking exterminating my people in Gaza right now? The Jewish state of Israel. Who considers us to be Goyim? The Jews. And the good ones, God bless them. Ilian Pape, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. God bless you, Ilian. Stanley Kubrick, a Jew. I love him. I do. The only people arrested on the day were Israelis. The dancing Israelis. You ever hear of them?
No.
Yeah. So there was a woman. Everybody's watching, obviously. You know, if you're living in proximity and you can see the Twin Towers, obviously you're watching. Like, how are you not going to watch this? So one person, a lady, who's famously interviewed, they probably killed her. I don't know what happened to her, but anyway, she called the police because she saw a group of men with binoculars filming and celebrating, which didn't make sense. You know, like, why would somebody? So she called the police. She thought this was suspicious. These are what's known as the dancing Israelis. I believe there was 4 of them, 3 or 4. And they later were arrested, but they were then released and quietly deported. But they weren't the only Israelis arrested that day. They then did an interview in Tel Aviv. It's on. People can go look, Google it. It's still there. And they said on live television in Tel Aviv, Israel, that they were sent to film the event. That's what they were. And that they are Mossad. They pose as like art students. This is part of their MO. So they're art students. They're actually Mossad. They infiltrate. So anyway, they said on record, this is not my opinion. This is what they said. They had foreknowledge and they were sent there to film the event, and that's why they were celebrating. Okay? So that's one of them. There was also other Israelis that were arrested. They were in a big truck that had been reported as suspicious. It was pulled over by the police. They inspected the vehicle, which was heading towards the George Washington Bridge. And lo and behold, it was full of explosives. And guess who the driver and the occupants of that vehicle were?
Israelis?
Yes, they were Israelis. They were also arrested. They were questioned and they failed lie detector tests. But we had a Jewish Secretary of Defense. Oh my God, what's his name? Oh my God. It was a Jew in the executive branch who quietly deported the Israelis with explosives, the Israelis who were caught dancing, and failed lie detector tests. A Jew in our government sent them home, nice and quiet like. Fox News actually did a story. Funny enough, Fox News. They did a really great story about this. And it only got told once, and they shut it down. But that is out there. The only people, and it exposed not only these ones that were arrested, but the biggest spy ring in U.S. history, Israelis. This was on Fox. They had proof. Like, this wasn't their opinion. These are all facts. Is that anti-Semitic? Oh yeah, the truth's anti-Semitic. The truth is truly anti-Semitic. You're not allowed to say these things. And only a crazy bastard like me will say these types of things. But it's true. And as I said earlier, truth is God and God is truth.
What about bin Laden, who was doing the videos in a so-called cave? Obviously, we've seen people now with the orange jumpsuits pretending to be beheaded. We've got the green screen as if they're in the desert and it causes chaos and fear. But what about the bin Laden thing with the videos and he was involved and what was that? How was that? What's the truth behind that?
It's the same thing as the 19 hijackers. They're CIA assets, and they get paid. They, in this case, remember Oswald, the one who supposedly killed Kennedy? What did he say before he got shot by a Jew in the gut and didn't get to testify? I'm a patsy. He said he was a patsy. He was a patsy. There's no way from the angle. I mean, anybody who does any analysis of the assassination of JFK, there's no way that Oswald could have done that. No way. Absolutely not. There's multiple shots anyway. So anyway, these idiots, they get paid by the CIA to like fly here, fly there, stay here. Mohammed Atta, the chief, hijacker, Mohammed Atta, was hanging out in Florida at a flight school where even the flight school instructor said those guys couldn't even fly a Cessna. Literally. Was going out with a stripper and snorting cocaine. Does that sound like somebody who's on a jihad? No, it sounds like a fucking patsy, an idiot who works for the CIA, who gets money to go snort coke, have sex with strippers, and be on this plane at this time and go over here and stay in that hotel and leave your passport here. It is ridiculous, man. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it just shows, like, how fucking stupid are we seriously going to get? I mean, this has been happening over and over. So, you know, the planes. Look, the Pentagon. I know enough about that too. All of the tapes surrounding the Pentagon, they were all taken away, and apparently, and they even acknowledge in the official bullshit 9/11 Commission report, which is just beyond a fucking snow job, it's ridiculous. The tapes were lost. Right. And that hole that plane was supposed to play. You are truly having a laugh, mate. You're having a laugh, mate. Surely, right? That's a good one, mate. I like that one. There was no fucking plane there. That was a missile for sure. If we're going to get into what hit the buildings, nothing hit the third building. That was clearly a controlled demolition. Again, Rudy Dent, chief fire investigator on the day, he heard all of the explosions, as did many others. That's not debatable. It's been thoroughly reported, although not repeated. And people to this day, including all the politicians, I don't know any politician who would suggest that anything other than these 19 hijackers, chief among them Atta, Norton Coke, fucking strippers, were on a jihad and overpowered the entire might of the military industrial complex and took out 3 buildings with 2 planes with box cutters and their passports conveniently. Oh my God, dude, you are having a laugh. It's 2 Jewish billionaires with Mossad that blamed it on Muslims so that we could carry out the global spectrum dominance agenda laid out by the Project for a New American Century, and it's all there.
How do you think the Americans would react if they had all this information, that innocent people were jumping out the building and dying all through this, and then invading other countries because you think it's the right thing to do, because your country's in threat? How do you think the Americans would stand if they knew?
There's a man named Alan Sabrowski. He is a professor at the Army War College at West Point. He is top level security level U.S. military. His credentials are undeniable. You can look online and you could find Alan Sabrowski. God bless you, Alan. He literally has said on record 100% what I'm saying. Israel did this, and he's talked to like Pentagon officials and like, if you want to destroy your political career, then you will open your mouth about this. If you want to destroy your political career, then you'll say the word genocide, even though it's bloody obvious. If you want to destroy your access to money, then you go ahead and speak like I'm speaking right now. Alan Sabrowski said, when the American people, to answer your question, when they find out, they're gonna be coming for the Jews' blood. They're gonna fucking destroy Israel. Question is, are they ever gonna figure it out? And we are closer now. See, and I'm the guy who's not even calling for that. I'm not, like, I want lawful prosecutions. If you committed war crimes and genocide and treason, that's a hangable offense right there. That's enough for me. I don't need no extrajudicial kill. I'm not going to lower myself to the level of my enemy.
Because then who's different?
Listen, if somebody's raping my child or whatever, like, obviously, there's situations that we can get into that would really not be good. But I've stood for law.